Hey everyone, how's it going? So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to perform maintenance on your blower motor for an '04 to '08 Pontiac Grand Prix, regardless of trim level. If you have the digital or manual climate controls, it does not matter. This applies to all of them. Now, I have a video on YouTube explaining how to actually remove this. So I'll leave a link in the description for that, so you can go ahead and check that video out as far as how to remove it. Now, why do I need to perform maintenance? Why do I need to remove this thing at all? Well, unfortunately, over time, the motor itself actually does wear down. It needs lubrication, it needs oil, whatever. So it does wear down, plus it gets dirty. So unfortunately, if there's too much resistance in this motor, it'll actually cause damage and probably break your blower motor resistor or blower motor control module, however you want to word it. And when that happens, unfortunately, yeah, you got to pull fuses because the blower motor will continue to spin even when the car's off, and there's nothing you can do about it without actually getting underneath your hood and pulling fuses. So to prevent that problem, we're actually going to be performing maintenance on this. Now, if you notice that your blower motor is squeaking a little bit, I highly recommend you stop using it and you immediately perform this maintenance. It's not that difficult to do, and it'll save you a lot of trouble and a lot of money later on down the road. Because most likely you're going to have to get a new blower motor, which is about $100, and then a blower motor control module, which is also about $100. So if you want to save yourself a couple $100, go ahead and do this. Again, I'll have a link in the description as far as how to get this blower motor out. Now, I have mine in the tub, which the only reason I do is because there's so much dirt coming off this thing. You can probably see just how dirty it is. This is all the dirt that is not being filtered by the cabin air filter, and it gets stuck in here. So it's actually a good idea to do this, once every year or two, to actually take this apart and clean it. Clean the fan, impeller blade, and then oil the actual motor. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take the blade off. Now you can see that I've got mine in my tub. As I said before, I don't have any running water. The tub is dry, so don't drop this in a tub that's got water in it or anything, because you will ruin the motor. Trust me, you will. So again, the only reason I have it in the tub is so that I can easily wash down all the particulates, and I am going to be washing this plastic piece here. So let's go ahead and get the blade off of here. Okay, so to get the blade off, it's going to require some muscle, some work. And I highly recommend that you get gloves for this, because it's going to be sharp edges down here where the bottom of the blade is, and when you're trying to lift it up, you're going to end up just causing your fingers a whole lot of pain. So get yourself some gloves. The blower motor itself is sitting, or the blade, the fan blade is sitting on an impeller shaft, which is right here in the middle here. It's a rod, and it's sitting right on here. And it's not locked into place, it's just they pushed it down in there. So you just basically need to lift it up. So it can be difficult depending on how old the motor is, depending on how many miles, how often it's been used and so on. So just take your time and get some gloves and just lift up on it. You can wedge it back and forth, whatever trick you can use. Man, that one was a pain in the butt, but look at that. Look at how dirty that is. Not only can you see some metallic particles in there, probably from the motor itself, but there's an awful lot of dirt in there. A lot of dirt. So set that aside. Here's the motor itself. And if you look, you can see that it's starting to wear down, sadly. These don't last very long. So we're going to clean this up. We're just going to dry wipe it down. I'm going to vacuum it out. I'm going to make sure there's nothing caught down in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and oil this part here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean the fan blade. And man, you can just see. Holy crap. Look at all that crap. Yep. So it's a good thing we're doing this now before this thing fails prematurely. Hopefully my wife doesn't need this washcloth. Okay, so I've cleaned it up about as good as I'm going to get it. What I ended up doing was taking a flat blade screwdriver and a washcloth, and I ended up going in between the blades to clean it up. It's not perfect, but you know, I'm not too worried about it. It's a lot better than what it was before. Now, before you put this back on the actual motor, make sure you let it dry it off really good, and just make sure that it's completely dry before you put it back on the motor. Okay, so if you're looking at this thing, if you can see on the inside, there's a lot of buildup in there. Despite the fact that I vacuumed it out really good, there's still quite a bit of crud that's come out of this. So make sure that you get as much of it out as you can. Look at all that crap that's coming out. Get as much of it out as you possibly can, and get a small wire brush or a small soft brush if you can, and get inside the holes. Be real gentle though. And yeah, just keep doing this and then just keep vacuuming it out. Okay, so there's two bearings that are in this motor. There's one right here at the end, one shaft bearing right here, and on the other side there's another bearing right there, and that allows smooth operation of the actual motor. Now the problem is that these dry up and they need to be oiled, and when you notice that they're squeaking, when this fan starts to spin and it's squeaking, it's having a hard time starting up, you need to oil these before the motor itself goes out. Now eventually the motor, you know, the copper strings on the inside of the motor, eventually are going to fail, but you can actually extend the life of this by making sure that this bearing here remains lubricated. So in order to lubricate it, we're actually going to be using 3-in-1 oil. This is multi-purpose oil. It's pretty cheap, only a couple of dollars. You can pretty much get it anywhere. And we're just going to add a couple of drops to the end of this shaft. We're going to try to stand it up the best that we can. So let me move the camera here so you can see this better. So we're going to add a couple drops to the end of the shaft. And okay, so just added a couple of drops, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin it so that the oil, you can see how seized up, or at least difficult this is to spin, just because it needs to be oiled. So turn it a couple of times and give it a little bit more oil. You don't want to add too much oil. You don't want to soak the motor. And I can feel that it's getting easier to turn. Not much easier, because I still have to take care of the bearing on the bottom, but it is getting easier to turn. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to flip it over. We're going to add a couple of drops on the inside here. Just keep spinning. Just keep spinning, just keep spinning. So now you can see that I can spin this without it spinning the entire blower motor. It is a lot easier to spin now. Probably going to turn this a little bit more, maybe add another drop or so. Again, you don't want to add too much because you don't want to soak the motor, and you don't want to obviously add too much on this side, again, not to soak the motor. And just take a rag or something and clean up the excess that you happen to spill when you're doing this. So okay, so I've been sitting here for about 10 minutes, adding a drop, spinning it for a couple minutes, add another drop, spinning it a couple minutes, and it's normal for some of the excess to actually come out. So get a rag, paper towel, whatever, just clean up the excess and keep spinning it until you notice there's no more excess. Basically, when it's upside down, you spin it a bunch and when it's upside down this way, you spin it a bunch. And when you notice that there's no more oil coming out the side or whatever, then you know that it's soaked up all that it can. So now we're going to go ahead and get it in the car, and we're going to let it run just to make sure that everything's okay. Okay, so a little disclaimer, this is one of those do-it-your-own-risk deals. Basically, you're going to be applying power to a motor. You could get injured, you could short something out, you could cause a fire. There's all sorts of things that can happen, so do it your own risk, or find somebody who knows what they're doing to do this for you. Basically, all I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in the motor to the harness, and then I'm going to turn it on to make sure it's working okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and get the key in the ignition. I'll turn the air off. Anyway. Alright, so there's the motor running at full speed. Let's turn it all the way down. Certainly does make quite a lot of noise even when it's oiled up. Of course, it's not balanced right now because part of the shaft isn't there, so that doesn't help. That's full speed. So anyway, it's working about as good as it's going to get. Actually sounds not too bad at all. No squeaking, no nothing. So I'm not going to let it run all day because it isn't balanced. Okay, so once the fan blade is actually dry, you can actually reinstall it. Now, on the inside here is a shaft opening that matches this shaft. There's a flat side on here. As you can see, just line that up, and once you've lined it up and you have it on there, just push down on all sides and make sure that it's down as far as it'll go. What I like to do is make sure that I have equal amounts of force on all different directions. So let's see if I can do this one-handed here. Set this on here, and you'll know when it's on because when you turn the blade, it'll actually turn the entire motor. And as I said, you apply a little pressure on one side, and then you apply a little pressure on the other side, and you just basically go in a circle until it's down all the way. Okay, so if you look at the top, it might be hard to see on camera, but if you look, I can't get further, that's a little bit better. The shaft will actually be touching the top of this portion. It's hard to see on camera, but just look at it real close and you'll see the shaft touching the top. Now, if you want some help, just tip it upside down, and then what you do is you just push down with both hands on your leg, your pants, or whatever. Don't do it on concrete or anything hard, because you may actually break something. So just kind of push down, and when you can't push down anymore, it's pretty much in there. You just want to make sure it's down as far as it'll go. So I can see with my eyes that it's as far as it'll possibly go. So, okay, so we have successfully done some preventative maintenance on our blower motor. So if you have any questions, definitely let me know, and there will be a complete guide, a YouTube video on removing and reinstalling the blower motor. So if you have any questions, let me know. Take care, guys.